So bear with me. In the world of art, you're doing art stuff, and I teach painting and form and things like that. I will tell my students all the time that everything is shapes and everything are basic, super basic shapes. Very, very basic forms. And with those very basic forms, you can make just about anything with very, very simple shapes. And it's true. So these are some pretty basic, simple forms, simple shapes. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're just blobbing paint everywhere. This isn't what I signed up for. But all right. But if I start to perhaps put some form to this and start to perhaps maybe give this a little bit more form. These are just primitive shapes. They're very basic shapes. They are shapes that you can use to make just about anything. If you put any of these shapes together, they can make a ton of things. They are, as they say, very primitive forms, primitive shapes. And these shapes are super important. All right? So these little shapes, you will hear them referred to as primitives and or, go back to my paintbrush, that might help. So we got ourselves a cylinder. This is a box. And a box can be anything. It can be a rectangular box. It could be many other versions of the box itself, right? It can be a lot of stuff. It could be a long box, a short box, but the point is it's a box. And this right here is going to be our, so these are our basic shapes. And these shapes right here are, at their simplest form, they are very, very primitive. And so you'll hear them called primitives. Now, we know that in 3D, for instance, if I had this, it's a very simple, it's a building block. So I like to think of very, very simple shapes, as I do in drawing, as building blocks. If I want to teach you anatomy, I will just give you this, and that's a cylinder. And then all of a sudden, we can box everything out. It's a box. Right there's a chest. We can put another cylinder right here. We can have a cylinder there, another sphere, another cylinder. And pretty soon, using some basic shapes, we can have a figure, right? Made out of really basic shapes, boxier shapes, cylinders, spheres. It's kind of a modified cylinder right here for the head. And these building blocks can help you make anything. Because essentially, there is box modeling, which I like a little bit more, and there's edge modeling. Now, I think in terms of very simple shapes first, and then I elaborate, and I can just put on the muscles on top of here, put the bicep in, and I'm going to put the the shoulders in, and I can put the pectoralis in there and the collarbone, and then I can do that, and I'll put the muscles on top of there. But I need a strong foundation, and your strong foundation are your primitives. Now, with the primitive itself, we know that we have vertices, edges to make up faces. In order to do things with these faces, and we were scaling and we were doing some other stuff, but we weren't really doing any sort of modeling just yet. In order to do that, we would have to, so this face right here, all of this cube is divided into 6 faces. Now, the number isn't really that important, but at its base model, it's divided into 6 faces like a die or dice or whatever, however you want to call it. In order to give myself, that is the geometry of that cube. So in order to give myself more geometry, so more geometry, that's a fancy way of saying giving myself more polygons or polys. So it's already divided, so I need to divide it again, meaning I want to subdivide it. So I want to subdivide the primitive. So I have subdivided the primitive to give myself more geometry. I could subdivide it one more time, and that divides everything again, like this. And this can go on and on. Now, if we take just this one side, if we were to take this and we unwrapped it, so we would have something that, let's just take one side, and we've divided it, we've subdivided it. And if we were just kind of to spread it out with all these points here, right? Zoom in, and all these have little points because all of them have vertices and edges. Well, it kind of looks like a net. And it kind of looks like netting. In other words, it's kind of like a mesh. Another fancy way of saying net. And so the mesh, when we subdivide it, it's still a mesh when it's 6 sides, but we subdivided it. It is a subdivided mesh, a subdivided netting. It is wrapping around. So all of these polygons are wrapping around, and they are doing this, and they're dividing, and they're doing all of this stuff, and then they're going this way. And so we have this cylinder that is divided up, and for my 2D people out there, it is divided up along these contour lines. Contour lines going this way, contour lines going this way, and when you increase, the more you increase them, the more smoother the form can become, right? And we'll go over that again, but I just want to give you these terms because all of these are going to have this netting around it. These are our primitives. These are our meshes. These are our poly mesh or polygon mesh. Sometimes you will hear them called primitives, right? And these are just the most simplest forms. Why did I go through all that? Well, right over here, if we go up to add, the first thing that you see is add mesh. Well, look at that. A plane. That's pretty simple, because if we add this plane, and I just kind of make it a little bit bigger, if I go into edit mode, I'm going to move this up. If I go into edit mode, or actually let's go back to object mode, let's select the plane. You can see that edit mode, this is just a big gigantic polygon. That's all this is. So in order for me to, I can't do anything. I can't really do anything with it. I can do a little bit, but not that much. So if I were to try to, say, move this portion over here, I can just kind of do that. That's not really giving me much of a model. I'm not able to do anything. So what do? Well, I can can click here and I can, it's already divided, but I can subdivide it. And when I subdivide it, this subdivided and gave me more polygons. And so I can subdivide it again. I can do that with this, this particular, let's go back into object mode, back into edit mode. Or if I want to select everything, I'm going to go into X-ray mode so I can see the back and select everything. And if I go over here, I'm just right-clicking and subdividing. Now it's subdivided everything. Let me take off X-ray mode so we can see this a little bit more clearly. I subdivided it again. Now I click off of here. All of a sudden, I now have I have a lot more room. I can subdivide. Try this again. But I can subdivide this again. And I can keep subdividing, right-click, subdivide, right-click, subdivide, and I can get so you can see that this is subdividing a lot. So now I can manipulate it a little bit more, whether I want to go into sculpt mode and sculpt with it, or I want to model. I probably wouldn't divide it up that much to model. Definitely would not in the beginning. But that is, and so if we look at this, this is, if I start highlighting on this, these are individual little polygons. This is our mesh. This is a 3D mesh. And so what I want to, or at least that's how I view it anyway. That's what makes it easier for me to understand. So we can add, let's go back to object mode, sorry. Let's go back to object mode because it'll do some different things here. So we can add a mesh. And what do we have? We got a cube. Yeah, there's a circle. There's a UV sphere. There's an icosphere. There is a cylinder, and there's a cone. And we got a donut. Donuts. Okay, they're cool. Love donuts. But I'm just saying. And a donut is another, it's a torus mesh, right? And so you see it says construct a conic mesh. So if we grab the cone here and we go up here, now this is gonna, obviously it's not one-sided. You can look and see that it's divided up. If I go into object or edit mode, we can see that it has some faces, it has sides, but at its core, it's a pretty basic shape. It's basic shapes that people can understand. And so that's why you can add a mesh. That's what you're doing. So I just wanted to put that into some context because oftentimes people don't really sometimes you may not understand, and I just wanted to give you the explanation of what a mesh is. So now you know. Let's move back into Blender in the next video and look at the next lesson.